Okay, everybody. First, I'll apologize. We've obviously got some issues with the technical side, and only a few people are able to sign in. But we're going to go ahead and move forward with the demo as planned. We will follow up with another session, but this way we can get it out there so everyone can see it in a recording session. So thank you, and again, sorry for the problems. My name's Sean Warman. I'm the program director, if for those who didn't know, and we're really excited to be sharing this option with Protern and having it as a training tool for us at Wyndham. I want to thank Rufus. He was instrumental in bringing it to us, and I also want to let everybody know that we are going to continue to use our training tools that we have now, using our Brower system, using simulated races, things like that. So this is not going to replace what we're doing now, so it will not be mandatory for you to purchase. It's just an add-on, and I think after you see the demo, you're probably going to want it because it's pretty cool. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Rufus to share a little of his experience with using Protern. Rufus, you're on.
Yeah, hi, Sean. You got me? Sir. Okay, great. Hi, yeah, thanks. So, yeah, just really briefly, I first came across Protern a number of years back. I was covering for 14's coach at Easterns, and I saw Burke using the system. Had no idea what it was, got filled in a little bit, and kind of immediately understood that there was some potential there. I then had a couple athletes come into the program where I was who were already using it and had continued to use it. They had come from programs that were already using it. And seeing that really made me understand what could be done. Since that time, that this is going back now a couple of years, Protern has been gaining adoption in different programs at both the academy level and beyond. A couple of the athletes that I had who were using it are now racing both FIS and D1 college. And I think that kind of tells you a lot of what you need to know. In addition to the fact that even at the World Cup level, you have teams that support athletes who are using it on their own. I mean, typically at that level, everything is kind of sponsorship based and they get what they get. But these are athletes who are actively getting the system off the shelf so that they can make use of it. And in my view, this is just I think Sean agrees with this. This is the way that that training is going to go. The place that video currently occupies, in my opinion, in most training programs is where something like Protern is going to be in the next few years. So it's really going to have widespread adoption, and I think it'll be really useful. So that's been my experience so far. So. Sean, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Thanks, Rufus. And now I think we're ready to hand it over to Alistair and let him run with it and show us how it's going to work.
Perfect. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Rufus. Yeah, my name's Alistair Smith, so I'm the founder of Protern.io. I'm just going to share my screen here so we can see. I think should come up. Sean, can you just confirm you can see it?
Yeah, I can see it, Alistair. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, sweet. So yeah, so basically with Protern's purpose is really it's to be able to kind of make actionable insights so that it can be faster. So faster improvement. As Rufus mentioned, it's it's kind of we're being used really at the top end all the way down from World Cup to U12. Some people have U8s on it, which might be a little young, but yeah, it kind of has full gamut. The idea really is to make it easier both for the coaches so that it makes their workflow faster and they can more quickly sort of pinpoint what it is that needs to be worked on, and also for the athletes to help them understand. So yeah, overall, we launched 2019. We now have customers in 30 countries, 20 national ski teams, including US Ski and Snowboard. We have academies and clubs all over the place now using the system, and the momentum's really it's been certainly building. As I mentioned, it's been great for the developing skiers as well as the top end. In fact, if anything, almost from my perspective, I'd say it's the developing skiers that get the most out of it. Of course, at the top end, they're looking down for hundreds. but those developing skiers, they're still learning and they're still developing their skier IQ. And so this is something that's been really be able to help them. And we've been seeing what's kind of, to me, one of the most exciting aspects of this is we've been seeing how the coaching of the sport is changing based on the information that's available. So I'll get a bit more into that. So the idea here is essentially make every run measurable. And it's the classics of saying you can't improve what you can't measure. With timing, it gives you the straight time, then that's ultimately what you're racing to. But in this case, what we can do is we can really break down what exactly is happening within the run, and we can really help pinpoint where those gains and where those losses are happening. And coaches can then help the athletes to target their training that much more into certain sections. So you can see, as in the flats is where you're losing all your time, or maybe you're doing just fine, except your starts are slow. So it's these kind of things that, because you can get right and drill right down to sort of every sort of foot of the course, then you can really help pinpoint what's going on. The core challenge with sort of, we call it sort of traditional training or traditional timing, is that with a timing system, you'll have one or two splits. So let's just imagine you have one split and you have a finish line. Really, what you're doing is you're splitting that course up into just two parts. And so when you cross that split, when the athlete crosses that split, you end up with really just an average of performance up to that point. And if you look at this image we have here, this sort of the two videos, exact same video, one with the data, one without, you can see there's constant ups and downs in terms of where time's being lost and gained. And so this really can help, again, for the athletes, be able to see where is it that they're losing time, where is it that they're gaining. And it's particularly helpful for them because, unlike the coaches, they've only had, depending on their age, they may have 1 year, they may have had maybe 4 years of really seeing themselves ski. And even then, they're watching typically just their own videos. And you imagine a coach is watching all of their athletes. They've been coaching for a bunch of years. They can really start to see what's fast and what's slow. And, they're explaining that to the athlete, and the athlete often smiles and nods. Whereas in this case, you can now show them and see, okay, when I'm saying this, like, it feels fast, but you're actually losing time. Look, you can see how your time's dipping in this particular section within this gate. So ultimately, the idea is that we're trying to remove that ambiguity. We're trying to make the sport more objective and be able to help with that training side of things. There's certainly the concept of it's the data, and it sort of removes the romance of it and all. But I guess at the same time, it depends what your goal is. If you are actually trying to improve and you're trying to get faster and you're trying to improve, especially on certain sections, or improve tactics and so on, ultimately it does help to be able to see exactly, okay, well, I was here and now I'm here and now I'm here. Time going down, I guess. So in terms of how the system works, so it's a GPS sensor, so it's the size of like a key fob, really. It goes in a bib in the back of the skier. They turn on their sensor, and then it starts recording the data. So it's going to record everything from the chairlift ride through to the run and so on. Typically, the way we will work with teams, or how teams will often use it, will be they'll often collect the data sort of all day, and then at the end of the day, the athlete turns off their sensor, and then they upload their data. This works especially well, especially in this scenario where Sean was talking about, where you're already using timing. Because certainly, as much as this can give you all the details and so on, what timing is also really good at is giving you an instant result right then and there. It's kind of like, we like to say, sort of like, timing is like a calculator. Protern is kind of like Excel, in the sense that, sometimes all you really need is just a calculator. You just want that number. But when you want to actually sort of dig deeper, then that's whenever you want those sort of that extra tools, or those tools and the extra bit of data to be able to really dig. So once the athlete uploads their data, and they can do that just from their phone, it connects to the sensor via Bluetooth, or you can plug into the computer and can upload. The coach will then make what we call quantrics, which I'll show you in a second. Basically lets them put splits wherever they want on the course. And then if they've taken some video, then they'll sync the video with the data. which again, you sort of saw in a little bits of those images earlier with that data overlaid. And at that point, then that's whenever the analysis and sort of the sharing and kind of understanding of what's going on, that's when that can happen. And that can happen remotely in the sense that you can log in, look at the times, or you can get the videos and then watch the videos and then see the speed and so on going up and down. So I'm going to switch my screens now, and then I'll show you Protern. So we'll start off with Protern video. So it's interesting because as Rufus was saying, it's kind of, I think he's saying sort of the evolution of the sport kind of and how video is used so much. Well, certainly that was a big feedback for us, was that this data is really interesting, but can you merge it with video? And so in the last, I guess I'd say probably 18 months, and really in the last 12 months, we've pushed really hard on the video side to really make it as fast and as easy for coaches to be able to get video processed. Because normally, I don't know how aware you guys are, but it can be quite a long bit to be able to go from video to labeling them all, depending on who the athletes are and so on. And it just takes up a ton of time. So, and often it doesn't end up happening because the coaches have other things they've got to get done, and then the day just gets away from them. So part of this is making it faster for coaches, but then, you know, there's the added benefit of then the information that's available both for the coaches to be able to see, but also for the athletes. So here, let me share. All right. Okay, so this is Protern video. So we've got here, this is actually some video from American Downhiller Camp that happened in May. So in this case, just for reference, there were 80 kids. We were processing over 350 videos. I think there were 900 timed runs in the day. And yeah, it was all ran sort of smoothly. So this was a great opportunity for us because we don't normally get to do this, where we're right there and sort of, you know, in the sense trying to see how it works with a big team. Well, they're not really a team, but a big sort of number of athletes. So anyway, this was a neat experience for us. But here, let me show you what. So we have here just quickly, basically all of the athlete names, run numbers, all automatically come up based on the data that has been already uploaded. So if we zoom in here, we'll see, so we have the skier, we have up here, we have their time, or their speed. And their speed, the coloring is based off of the comparison to themselves. And this can change, the coach, up to the coach how they want to do it, whether they set the comparison to the fastest overall run for the day, or whether they set it to the athlete's fastest. Often with developing skiers, that's kind of the best way to do it. With World Cup, they'll often use the third setting, which is comparing to the run. So it's always run one is always compared to run one. So because all the athletes are the same level. So yeah. So we have here, red is where she was slightly slower. Green is where she was faster. And then the dark green is 5% or more faster, dark red 5% or more slower. So we can play in here. So we'll see here, and then we can also have it where we can change on the fly the different views. So we can see then in real time what her time was lost or gained. So in this point, we can see at this point along the course, she's about, let me slow this down. So 1500, so the green is again showing the speed. So she's actually a little bit quicker and she's just gaining time. You can see up until she gets to around this point here where she loses some time. So again, for you guys, this is what, as parents, you can get this video and then watch it with your athlete. You watch it yourself. It just, as I said before, it removes that layer of ambiguity. So we can see here, this little red section, we can actually just click on that section right there to see, okay, what was happening when she was coming into that section that was causing her to sort of be a little bit slower than before. Maybe it's obvious, maybe not so much. So it's just coming into this gate, it looks like, where, you know, versus her run 2, she was just, yeah, okay. So then there we are. It's always a little puff of snow, kind of a bit of indication. This right here shows a bit. I was watching this video ahead of time. It would have been a great example, but if we jump ahead to it, you can see she's just about to go behind this tree, and then something happens right on that, in that gate. That's kind of hard to tell, where she loses a ton of speed. So almost 10 kilometers per hour kind of through that turn versus her run 2. So this is on the video side. You can also do where you can compare. Let me just grab here. We can also compare to other runs. So we have Ivy run 1. I don't know if there's another one of her, but let's grab another athlete. And again, you can do this yourself whenever you have a couple videos. You don't actually need to have a Protern account yourself. Protern Video can work with, you can import videos from what the coaches would have filmed, and then you can view this on your computer or on your phone, whatever, PC, Mac, Android, iOS, whatever. It works on all platforms. So then whenever you compare the 2 videos, we just line them up, and then we can see the direct speed comparison between the 2. So again, this is 2 different athletes, but if you're doing it even with the same one, you can look and see the different sort of what the impact was in the speed between the two. So right now we have on the left, purple, we have the speed is 0, and then on the right is the relative difference in speed. So we can slow it down a bit here. And anyway, they're out of sync at this point, but then you can see exactly kind of what's going on and what the difference is. Again, comes back to that, making it sort of objective and making it a lot more clear for the athlete what is going on. So this can help too the coaches in terms of different strategies where they can try something and then have the athlete go, okay, well, let's try another tactic, let's try another line coming into this particular section. And then we'll look at the video later and have the data, and you can see, okay, yeah, see, you were actually able to maintain your speed or actually even gain a little bit throughout. So again, that's where it comes up with this new sort of, it allows the coaches to, it gives them a bit more time so they can spend a bit more time with the athlete, because they're not spending the time processing video and then, or just trying to watch the video to see what's going on. But it can also then help the coaches understand exactly where in a particular section that this athlete may be struggling. So that's the video side of things. I'm just going to swing this over. This is what the data side looks like. So once data has been uploaded and the coach makes what's called a quantric, which is basically the start and puts in all the splits, and they can put in splits wherever they want on the course, and they can make them as small or as big as whatever. Then you end up with basically your timing sheet. So again, this is something that for your athlete, you can have a login and you'll be able to see their times, and it'll be depending on how the coach wants to do it, whether or not they're sharing it so that the athlete sees everybody or whether they're just seeing themselves. There's value certainly in both scenarios. Sometimes just seeing, especially for some of the developing athletes, just seeing their own runs is kind of a good strategy, mainly because so they don't get in their head about someone else being way ahead or whatever. But here, what I'll do is I'll show you how typically we would analyze this kind of thing here. So we've got their run, their time through the various splits. We can add different metrics. So the one that's most often used is instant speed. This is their speed when they're crossing the split. It's like having a speed trap that's just one dimension. It's just the line. So this can be really helpful if the coaches put the split at the beginning of a particular section and the end. You can see the entry and exit speed for that. Often it's used in the flats. A great story that came out of Solden last year, Henrik Kristoffersen, he uses Protern regularly, and what they were trying to do is come up with different strategies for the final flat out of Solden. And that's really where the race is won or lost. Like in the steep section, you can kind of do, as long as you're making the gates, well, I'm sure so maybe it's a little bit harder than that, but it's this element of if you can kind of really carry your speed through that last bit. So he was trying different strategies to the end, and then this is exactly what they did. They set the splits kind of through the end, and they could see, okay, which of their strategies they were trying resulted in the best speed through that final section. So here we can see again, speed coming into this flush, speed coming out. If we want to dig deeper, what we can do is we can analyze their runs in more detail. And this, what I love about this particular Quantric, this data set, is that this athlete is the fastest, like by far. So they have five of their runs are faster than the next fastest athlete. And then after that, they've got another 6 and 7 before even another athlete comes up. So it's a perfect example of where you can use this tool to coach, even if you just have your own athlete's data, or if you happen to have, it's the fastest athlete, there's still a lot that can be gained. So we select those, we can go analyze runs. And now what we'll do is we'll see up here, we'll see their speed over time. So if we see the little dots below, you can see this athlete's basically racing themselves. But where it becomes really helpful is if we flip to distance. So now we have distance down the course, so 100 meters down the course, 200 meters, and then relative. This is similar to that view I showed you with the side-by-side comparison. So here, what we can see is we can start to see where the athlete's having some challenges. Kind of up to almost 200 meters down the course, this is sort of typical. You're going to see little bits. There was a little mistake probably happened on the fastest run where all the other runs are a little bit quicker, but generally speaking, you're going to see these ups and downs. But then in here, you can start seeing where the speed braids more, where they're having trouble being able to maintain their speed, especially in this section here. We've got big differences, almost an 8 km/h difference between the fastest and the slowest. Similarly, we have a section we like to call kind of a moment of greatness with run 2, the green run, where from about here on, they're that much faster. So in this section, particularly just within here, we can see they're 3 km/h faster than the fastest run. So this would be a section, or this would be a scenario where, if you have the video, you could look at the video where the coach has the video, they can really hone in really quickly and go, okay, well, what did they do in run 2 that made them so much quicker? And was that even a good thing? Because maybe this moment of greatness right here, maybe it was actually a moment of hubris. Maybe they just were going a little too fast, and then down in here, you can see now they're actually quite a bit slower. So this is something, again, you can work with the athlete and kind of try and see what was going on. This data happened a long time ago. I wasn't there. I don't know what the circumstances of it are, but certainly in the evening or even at lunch, going over this can be sort of helpful for them, especially if it's kind of a more targeted training session, sort of a purposeful practice scenario where it's, okay, we're really going to focus on the flats again, and we're going to try different scenarios. We may not get as many runs in today, but we're going to be really focused on trying different things. And then we're going to look at what sort of came out of that. And whether you're looking at this or looking at the video, it's kind of up to you.
Alistair, can I ask you a quick question about that?
For sure.
So let's just surmise maybe that fast green line was because she missed a few gates, right? So it was faster. Is there a way for us to be able to sort of adjust the data for either in training where they miss gates or whether they blow out and restart? What's the best way to be able to remove those inconsistencies with the rest of the runs?
Yeah, so actually, it's funny you should bring that up. I can show you what we have just in testing right now, but we actually have an automatic DSQ detector now. So we can now tell when there's up to 10 runs, based on whatever, 1 run for 10 athletes or however many, we just need 10 runs. We can then start to tell whether or not, or what the course is, and see whether or not the athlete blew out, where they blew out. And at that point, then we'll still show it. In this case, these were pretty simple. They're just the time was too long, but we'll actually note when on the course they blew out. And then we won't be using that as the fastest comparison. And it's up to you whether or not you want to keep the run, because it often can be helpful, especially if they pop back into the course. And actually, even if they blew out, it can be valuable because you can see, okay, what was their speed leaning in? Again, was that a scenario where they were just going in too hot? But yeah, this is actually kind of, it brings up sort of if anything, what our focus is with Protern 2 is it's very much, we see a bunch of advancements around, now we can detect where the course is and what's going on with the course. We can start to also identify trends for certain athletes of how they're handling certain scenarios, whether it's a course set, whether it's terrain and so on. And so a lot of those things we're actually working on and going to be incorporating both in this view here, but also in the video side. So when you're watching the video, it can bring up sort of time-coded analysis based off of the athletes' performance that day and compared to kind of how they've been doing in similar situations in the past. So, yeah, so that's, there's a lot here. I can probably go on. Well, I totally could go on and on and on. I think for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to pop back over to, where are we? I'll pop back over to my presentation here, share screen. Perfect. So yeah, so as I said, the idea is it's supposed to benefit both the athletes and the coaches, of course. Coaches, the big part for them is to try to help them, be as efficient as possible. There's a ton of stuff on their plate. And so one of the things that Protern, we've had it where some people have been like, oh, well, it's kind of replacing coaching. And I would say 100% no. My background is not in alpine ski racing. I know the data and I can interpret the data very well. But if you had me go out on the hill and go, okay, interpret the data, now tell the athlete what they need to do to change, I'd be lost. I could certainly say this is a problem, this is a problem. But ultimately, what it does in terms of helping the coaches is it helps them get really quickly into the areas that need to, the high importance areas that they need to focus. And then for the athletes, again, they're getting that really objective sort of information. So it's really that efficiency jump for the coaches gives the coaches more time to be able to focus on the athletes, which then helps the athletes be able to sort of, gain their skills faster. It also helps the athletes and it gives them more confidence in their progress. So that is another challenge with timing, is that, sometimes an athlete may be always in the red. They're always just slower than this other athlete. But the idea here that because you can measure the entire run, there's moments whenever that slower athlete may actually be better than the faster one. And it can, and it may be even a scenario where coming back to starts, maybe in the end, the athlete, maybe their starts aren't that strong and they're actually catching up and the course was just a little bit longer, they would do okay. There's scenarios like that where because you're given more information, you can start to see, okay, well, maybe there's scenarios where you are better and maybe there's scenarios where the best could certainly, learn from the others in terms of how they could get better. So I think in terms of getting the system, from what I understand, basically what we've done is we've set up a page, which I think will be shared at some point, the link. It'll be a direct order page on our site for the Wyndham athletes. It's kind of a secret link. So there's a little thing that in the link that you get, if you click on, you should be able to get to this. If you get to a point where it says this is locked, then you'll have to go back to that original email to make sure you get the link with the little extra bit on the end that lets you unlock this. So you can pick your bib size for the athletes. The bib that's shown there, we're actually in the process of changing to more of an alpine standard bib. This bib sort of comes from soccer. It's going to be sort of a mix between the two. But for you guys, in terms of getting it, the first year includes everything, the sensor, the bib, and then the season pass, which is essentially the software, access to the software. That's valid from November 1 to April 30th. And then the next year after that, you already have the sensor and bib. So then it's just the season pass renewal is what you would need to do. If your athlete decides to move on, leave the sport, then you can put the sensor and the bib in the ski swap along with the rest of their gear. The sensor, it's not like an Apple Watch or anything. It's not tied to the athlete. You can just sell it on. Or as Rufus mentioned, if you decide to move teams, which I'm sure is not going to start here, but if that, well, whatever, they move on to college programs and so on. At that point, they can just take the sensor with them and then, use it. If the other team is not using it at that point, Protern, that's still fine. They can collect their own data and analyze their runs. Or if the team's using it, then great. You just link your account to the new team. So yeah, there you go. That's kind of my spiel. I don't know if within the group here, if there's any questions.
Hey, Alistair, thank you. I think it's great. I'm a huge fan of data, and I think there's opportunity to help me be a better coach. That's how I see this. I like to think I know everything, but I don't. And I think when we start analyzing and looking at the data of an athlete and say, wow, okay, yeah, you were slow here, and why were you slow, and start to dig into it. And I may at times be able to pinpoint why they are slow without the data, but certainly this adds confirmation or finds a spot where I didn't even know that they were losing time. So I think it's really exciting for us and for our athletes who I don't know if it's for everybody for sure, but there's some opportunity for kids to learn, coaches to learn. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, and I think, Sean, as you point out, it can run in parallel, to your existing stuff. Like, it's not like you don't get it. It's there's still the same coaching that you guys are providing and have been providing. So it's it is an additional information, additional tool, but it's there if you want it.
Yeah, for those families and athletes that are really taking a deep dive and want to analyze and spend the energy doing it, it'll be great. All right. Anybody else?
I had a question about the technology, Alistair, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
You mentioned that there was a Protern 2, a second iteration of that. What would that consist of?
Like a Protern.
You said there was a Protern 2, like the second iteration of this, another iteration of this coming forward?
In this, no, like in terms of like what we're working on right now within the software itself, it's basically like that is the whole idea around the subscription, which is that we're essentially just keep adding to it. So it's that like coming down the pipe on the video side is this AI analysis. So as I was mentioning to Carolyn, with just basically having we break the run into a whole bunch of different components, and we look at it in sort of comparable bits. What do starts look like over time for the athlete? How within the course itself, how is the athlete starts? How are they comparing to previous starts? How are they comparing to others? We break it into terrain and so on. And so all of that information is we then kind of crunch that and then present that to the athlete, or basically within Protern video, sort of as succinctly as possible. The added
functionality would actually come from the software updates, and as you add more features, it gets added to the software. That's part of the subscription then.
Correct. Yeah, that's our primary focus. Yeah, like we are working on a next generation sensor that won't be available until I guess this next season. We'll probably be keeping this version. It's kind of the next generation would be more sort of a 4G enabled sensor, but at this stage they're effectively like they'll both be available, mainly because the 4G side of things works well for certain scenarios where we're seeing with World Cup teams where they're wanting to do, get live feedback, especially in a World Cup downhill training run. The first athlete goes down, they're able to get data in time to be able to feed information to the next athlete before they go. So it's sort of a more specialized kind of application, the sensor level. But the software is really where we put most of our energy into, or pretty much all.
Hey,
Thank you.
Alistair. Hey, Alistair, this is Patrick. I'm one of the coaches at Wyndham. It looks really interesting. I had a question around, I guess it's around your software, and how we match the data and align it to a run on the video. And I was just curious how much of that is manually done versus the software just takes care of it for you.
It's automatic. So basically, what you would do is, if you're filming, depends how you're filming. So you can film with a phone. You could film, and actually that also brings up, even for the parents. The parents could film their athlete with their phone and then link the data themselves once their athlete has uploaded their data. But Patrick, if you're using a camera, there's a special device that goes on. It's called a LTC, a linear time code generator, and it plugs into the microphone port. And so what that does is it lets us know exactly down to the millisecond when the video was recorded.
Okay.
So once you've uploaded the data to Protern and you've made the Quantric, then you can just go straight from the SD card, drag your video into Protern Video, and then it can tell exactly when each of the videos were recorded. And then what it does is it sees, okay, who was on the course at that time. And so if there's only one person, then it automatically assigns that video to them, and downloads the data. If it's more than one, it'll give you the two options and show you actually where those athletes were on the course. So it can give you a bit of an idea as to whether or not, okay, are they at the top of the course or bottom, if you couldn't see. So yeah, like it basically, you can process like 50 videos. It takes about 2 minutes to get from having all the names and all of the data linked.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was interested in hearing. Thank you.
We
But
have,
Yeah, sorry, just to jump in, Alistair, just to add in that, to make sure that the team's clear, it's actually incredibly efficient when when I worked with Alistair, the way we did it is you came off the hill and it was maybe a 5-minute turnaround and they were all labeled and they would sync automatically. One of the things that I was curious about, Alistair, is between last November and now, can you do any of that as a direct drop, real-time drop, or do you still need to download it at the end of the day like we did?
Yeah, you would still need, so the sensor data would still need to get uploaded at the end of, like, before you're doing that video work.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that step would still have to happen.
But the most amazing part about it is in regards to other programs you use, because everything's pre-labeled ahead of time, you get an instant drop to the athlete. So within that upload, it goes directly to the labeled athlete drop immediately. Much more efficient.
Well, just to clarify, Claire, so what it'll do is it actually is all on your computer at first, or wherever it is. You could use your iPad or whatever. And at that point, then, because it's all labeled, then you can then share those videos how you want. So we don't have, at this stage, there isn't like a Protern cloud that will then automatically push it to the athletes. And we'll implement that probably some point this season. The idea, though, is we've gone with this strategy first, mainly because often the connectivity wherever we are, and I think when we were talking at Panorama, it may be marginal. So in that case, there's a whole bunch of other options like airdrop and so on, which end up being quite a bit more efficient. But with you guys, yeah, with Wyndham, it'll be kind of a whatever the strategy is that you guys currently do now in terms of sharing video. You could just upload the video that's been processed to Google Drive or whatever you happen to use. But certainly in the span of the season, likely we'll be adding a more automatic cloud sharing.
and I just want to add that we do have one of these units that plugs into the camera. We've ordered one, and so we will be able to do that. My question is, let's say we have 20 athletes and 3 of them have sensors. How, when you go to process this video, how does that work?
So we've just implemented a feature that you can now, like, if you had asked me maybe a month ago, I would have said not well. Well, I probably wouldn't have. I would have talked around the point. But but yeah, we've actually added it now where you can assign we call them non-Protern athletes. And actually this came out of the French national ski team, because what they do in the World Cup teams is they're filming the top 30 coming down. And of course, the other athletes very likely are wearing Protern, but they certainly don't have access to their data. But they still want to be able to have the video within Protern video. So they can then, it'll automatically pick out their athletes. And then whenever it's, whatever, River is coming down, then they can pick and they can go from a different list and go, yeah, this is River. So that's how, Sean, you would probably have it, is you'd build a list of all of your athletes who don't necessarily have Protern, so you can still label them. And it's all, the way the process works is it's a nice workflow. You drag and drop, and it basically it starts auto playing the video, lists the names on the right, and then you just click on the name when you're, for whoever it was.
Okay. I'm sure there's a learning curve for us, so, but I'm excited. Well, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, we can wrap this up. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll be in touch. See you next time.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Alistair. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Thanks, Alistair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.